Okay, so little quick tutorial for Roadwarrior. So when you first open it up, no matter where it's at, it's going to load up the last route. So what you want to do is down here at the bottom left, click New Route, and you don't really need to worry about the bottom two. Just focus on the top one, Create Blank Route. This will pop up. Um, the only thing that you really want to have selected here is you want to make sure this top one is set to one way. Just starting out, you want the fastest, not the shortest. These are options you can play around with. This is just what's worked best for me. You're driving. You can set this to walking if you want to. Entirely up to you. Avoid if you have a toll or a ferry. I guess a ferry would be the only thing we'd have to worry about. You can select that. Um, the start time, don't really worry about that. The start location is automatically where you are, and then just press save. And then it's going to open up this screen. So this is essentially the only where your starting point is. So down here in the bottom right, which I don't have the cursor set, so bottom right, big red button, click that button, and we'll go ahead and put in our first address, which will be 2000 Mercer Road. Now it has a star next to mine because I have this as a saved address, which I'll show you later. So actually, we'll save that one. So we'll do, let's see, 801 North Main. And you'll notice that as you put stuff in here, it's going to auto-populate addresses. This is a good thing, can also be frustrating. There is a certain way that Road Warrior wants you to put in addresses. As you saw, 801 in Main popped up no problem. 801 North Main will probably also work. The issue arises when you get into U.S. highways, Kentucky highways, stuff like that. You literally will just have to play around with it. In Cynthiana, to give you an example, I can do 1050 South 27. Oh, pay no mind to that. You'll see that I have several different addresses here for South 27. Now, if I just did 27, it still pops up the one that I want, which is the one in Cynthiana. That is correct. Um, if I wanted to do 40, and I think it's Highway 356, let me confirm, 392. So if I want to do 40, 392, sometimes this works. If you just do the number after, it doesn't always. In fact, this used to work. Typing Highway 392. It doesn't like that either. But watch what happens when I put KY. All of a sudden now it's found Kentucky 392, which is the second option here, which is right there. You have to play around with it when you do your stops. You just have to, once you do it one time, you'll never forget it. Or if you do, you'll learn to listen the second time. So a little nuance there, but nevertheless. So if we go down here to 801 North Main, it's pretty good about knowing where you're talking about based on what area of the map that you're over. So there is obviously more than 801 North Main, probably everywhere around us, but the section of map that I'm looking at only has uh, this little section. Obviously, it's got some over here, Lawrence, So, and I think it also saves some things internally. So, the more you use it, the smarter it gets. So, 801 North Main, and we'll put that one there. I have this set up to where it automatically pops up this box. I believe this is default. If it's not, we'll cover it in a moment. So what will happen here is that you have your main address up here. This is really just the name, so you could even customize this and put bathhouse. That's the bathhouse. That's the address. You can do more stuff. This is more if you want to save the address. Like you could put a note on like um, door code 5567. You could certainly do that, and then you can add a color. Now, your visit time, you don't really need to worry about this. Most stops will be a minute. You can set this higher by default if you want. The default for mine is obviously 1 minute. There is a way to do 2 or 3 that'll give you a more accurate reading on how long it's going to take you to do your route. Not a big deal. Then you have your colors. I use the color system based on where the item is in the truck, or if it's a P1 or a P2. P1 box is always blue. It's always on the same shelf. P1 document is always yellow in the dock bucket. That way I know exactly where it is. Everything else kind of just is my own system, but you can use it with what you want. So if we save that one, I haven't done Nicholasville in a long time, so let's see. So I've forgotten some addresses. I think the address portion is pretty self-explanatory. So let's give ourselves Lowe's, and then let's give ourselves the hospital here. So the addresses are pretty easy to type in once you do it a couple of times. We got a pickup here. You don't have to put, I don't generally put pickups in unless it's an on-call, so I just don't forget. We'll do Walmart up here. We'll put the drop box right next to it. It's been a while since I've done Nicholasville. Leave me alone. We got downtown. We got Kroger. What was that? Big Lots or whatever it is. All this garbage over here that nobody likes to do. Every one of these places is pretty bad. The Lockmaster on the front is not bad. I guess both the Lockmasters aren't bad, but everybody hates Venture. Okay, so that gives us a pretty good idea of putting stuff in. So if you go down to the bottom right and click Route Info, this gives you a breakdown of how many there are, 13. How many you've done? We've done 0. So if you go into List, instead of Map View, you go into List View. You can see everything. You can obviously there's no addresses here. You can customize this list before you order the stops. Once we go into order stops, everything changes. But if you just input your stuff in the morning, you can go into this list and you can put it in alphabetical or I think numerical in the order you put it in. I have my list set up in alphabetical, which also goes by like the house number. So if you do all the ones are next to each other, all the twos, so you can really get a good idea of what something is. It helps me in the morning because if you end up having to give a package back or whatever, you don't really have to like second guess yourself. You can quickly find it in this list. Phone went off. You can quickly find it in the list. So we have our route. We go into our list. So you can see everything. Now if you notice down here, I have 2000 Mercer. I have it starred. So let's just say, okay, this isn't really something that I generally do for me, but it can help, especially if you're going to run straight. Like if your whole goal is to run straight. I have this saved, and I can quickly press Add to Route, and then it's in my route. And then what I can do is I can set this as my final stop. So I'm telling it that's my last stop. So if I go into the bottom here and go to Order Stops, all of this is the same from before. Nothing of this has changed, and it's just showing you what stops you have. So all of these are the ones that we want optimized. Whatever's in your list, this is what it's going to do. If you add more after doing this, it will not incorporate them into the optimization, meaning it won't have a number assigned to the stop. I'll show. So if we optimize this, generally doesn't take long. This also doesn't work if you don't have service. So don't go out to the middle of the county and be like, oh, see how I'm going to run this. Not going to work. So obviously it shows where I am over here in Hamburg. What's up? Over here is 2000 Mercer, stop 14. And then we have what it says is the best way to do this. This is 50-50 on if this is actually the smart way to do it or not. The good part about this is this shows you, and why I continue to use it, it shows you what connects to each other. So when you look at stuff on the map, especially if you don't know the area, you don't know what's easy to get to from one stop to the other. It can be kind of confusing. So this is especially good for the county because you can immediately tell what is a good way to run it, and I'll show that in a second. So we can tell from here, there's kind of two main ways to do this. You can either start at the end, being up here at the 12 and the 13, which that's our Walmart, our John Locke, or whatever it is, drop box, and you can run all the way south and then come back up the bypass to 1, 2, and 3, or you can run it how it says. You can do it any way you want. So let's just assume we are running it by the numbers. So once we get to number 1, this is what I do. You don't have to do this. This is just for OCD kind of thing. When we get here, which this is Concentra, we just check in. That marks it off the list. It's got to check. We did that one. That way later in the day, if you get near the end and you're like, oh, what's this box? Is it Concentra box? Yeah, you've been there. You've definitely been there. You got to go back. We go to the hospital, we check in. We go to Lowe's, we check in. It doesn't take this purple route line away. So I'll show you why the check-in feature, because some people like to do this. So if we were at Concentra and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get rid of this, that route line is now gone. Not necessarily that important. Kind of helpful when you first start out because it gives you a visual representation of what it's going to actually look like. But now that line is gone, so you can't really see how to get to certain stuff. You're like, oh, okay. Not necessarily a big deal. So let's just say we did that. Let's just say we're on stop 4. When you get to stop 4, now granted, when you press this navigation button, it's going to ask you how you want to open stuff. Use Google Maps. Don't use anything else. And you can set it. There's an option where you can say always do this by default. So press navigate, and it's going to open up the stop. Now, it doesn't transmit addresses. It transmits GPS coordinates, or longitude, latitude, which you see down there. So it's actually pretty accurate. It's been more accurate than Google Maps 70% of the time. Pretty good. So that's where we're going. If you're unsure about where you're going, this is the time to physically type in the address to Google Maps just to verify. But this is actually where we want to go, and we can just, go there. So you don't need that purple line. Not a big deal. So we can check in. That's pretty much the gist of like that. The best example of why this is helpful, this is my route today. Okay, this whole thing is nonsense because there's a lot of county stuff. So, and I'll show you why exactly this can be pretty important and pretty helpful. So right now I'm going to reactivate all these stops. If I ever get there. Okay, now I'm going to okay, that okay, so that's not going to work like that. Oh my goodness. There's not a restore. Let's see if we can. Move to a new route. Save. Okay, there we go. Figured it out. Learning on the fly. I've never done that before. So I've taken all the stops from my route today and made a new route. So if I look on the map, that's what it is. I have everything color coordinated. So if I order my stops, it's going to be a little different because I'm doing it from my house instead of the station. So this gives me a good representation. This is the key factor. In the city, it's not so bad when you learn stuff. But this county stuff, I mean, this is a godsend to me because I can easily tell the quickest way to get from one county stop to the next. And this whole chunk over here, I ran it just like that. Now, granted, what was it? This stupid bastard. Yeah, I couldn't take the way it wanted me to take because the road was closed. Can't do anything about it. You know, you just got to figure it out on the fly. But that would have been the fastest way. And this was a little county to the north. And I generally go up this way, but it wasn't the smartest way to do it. So this is why I use it specifically for the county stuff. The in-town stuff is not that big a deal once you get the hang of the whatever city you're learning. Lexington can be kind of complicated. After you've done the same side of Lexington 20 times, you'll easily figure it out. You'll be able to look at your manifest and be like, oh, okay, I need to go there first and go here. It doesn't take long. So that's pretty much the gist on how to use it. Now, when it comes to anything in settings, this is what my settings look like. This display setting is off because I have it set to always go to Google Maps. Everything else is off except pop next stop. I have this checked because when I create a stop, what that means is when I'm inputting a stop and I'm ready to press this red button down here to say I want to put that there, it pops up with this screen. I use the screen on almost every stop because of the colors. If you're in a rental van or something, this isn't necessarily important, but I still use it even in a rental because I want to know it's P1. I don't want to have to look at my Leo to get a representation because you can look at the Leo and see what's P1, but if you're going to be using this, it's far easier to just be able to see your P1. Now, granted, I didn't run service today. I guess tomorrow we're going to have to, but I've got a couple of blues in here and dark blues to let me know that I need to get these off. The other ones are not as important. So this is a little bit easier for me to see than having to look at the Leo because I'm going to be looking this anyways. That's pretty much the gist of it. The only other thing that you could do is if you wanted to add, let's say you wanted to you go to this stop every day, you can save this stop and it's just saved to favorites. And then what that means is that anytime you go to the list, your favorites are down there. So there's no problem to always have that stop. You can make it to where I have the station on there. I actually don't know how to get rid of the favorite, which is funny. I guess that did it. So that's pretty much the gist. Any other? Oh, there's the favorites. Yeah, okay, so you can do it there. So any other questions? Feel free. It is kind of like not very friendly when it comes to new users. I've used it for it's like 3 years now. So and I haven't, there's still stuff that I really don't mess with. Like one thing that I started to do when we were doing service, which I guess I might have to do now, is that if you have all this crap on your map and you're like, I just need to see the P1s, you can actually go to filter the map pins, and you can actually filter them by the color. So if I did all my P1s for that blue color, oh, and that's my brother. and I go here, it still shows me the lines, but funny enough, I only have two of that blue color. So if you make all of your P1 the same color, you can just run P1 based off this. So you can be like, okay, I just need to focus on my P1. I just want to see my P1. You've got this red icon at the top right. Looks like a funnel. So, and you can easily press clear all filters, turn it off, and go back. Everything comes back. So if you just want to see certain things, that's the way to do it. Um, and then always your route info. This will tell you, this is an idea. This, I don't really pay attention to this. I don't know how accurate this is. We can look at it right now. So it's telling me that the travel distance is 123 miles. The travel time is just short of 4 hours. The total time, and that's the stem time getting up there, starting the route, and then finishing is 4.5. That's probably pretty accurate if you don't account for any stops taking longer than 1 minute, and you don't account for anything else that's going to happen. Because this does not account for traffic or anything. It counts for the distance between each stop and the 1 minute it gives you at the stop. This gives you an idea. It would generally always be pretty off. Just things happen, you know. If I could do this route in 4.5 hours, I'd be a part-time courier. I don't think anybody could do that. So that's pretty much the gist. Any questions? Let me know.